I guess I could relate this to, you know, like a mullet. The standards are like, you know, like business in the front, party in the back, right? Right now my hair is like party all the time. There's no business. Well, it's business. It's my business, okay? It's my business. But anyway, like I had a client tell me recently, like, Randy, I kind of enjoy kind of, you know, how you do things. You kind of mix in fun and you kind of mix in seriousness. Right? You kind of mix in fun, you kind of mix in seriousness, and that's a great way to describe what my standards are. That's a great way to describe my standards.
This struggle got purpose and we grow. So whatever role we have to take next, all I need to know is that we'll roll with the punches.
Alright, y'all, Pilgrim Coffee, one of my favorite coffee shops in Johnson County. I don't hit up the coffee shops as much in Johnson County, partly because I'm just in Johnson County so much seeing clients that in my free time I love to get outside the Johnson County bubble. I just love to get outside the Johnson County bubble and experience culture in other parts of Kansas City. So I seem to kind of go to, you know, downtown more, the Crossroads, you know, Midtown, Waldo, Westport, the Plaza. I seem to get outside of Johnson County, the bubble, as much as I can, just to experience other parts of life in Kansas City, right? But Pilgrim Coffee, great place to just chill. And I've always wanted to try one of those Pop-Tarts that they have in there. I just haven't, I haven't yet, but I'm going to, all right? Especially, you know, blueberry is the king of donuts, and I bet it's the king of Pop-Tarts too, all right? Y'all, I wanted to talk with you about something. I wanted to talk with you about standards. I wanted to talk to you about my standards, and I wanted to ask you about your standards. So I'm gonna take you on a little trip back. I'm gonna take you on a little trip back to, let's go 70s, late 70s. I was born in 1976. So let's take a trip back to, let's say, the mid 80s, early 90s. Guys, I was living that life. I had a chaotic childhood. My family kind of was in and out. I'll call it dysfunctional. I've kind of moved past that and healed from that, but in and out. You know, I had 3 different dads during that time. A lot went on in my childhood, okay? And so then fast forward, get married, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so my point in all this is kind of like the dysfunction in my life, especially, okay, so I'm getting messed up on the timeline here. Let's go back. Let's just say, as a kid, I had a dysfunctional life. I really never, ever really developed a self. Because of this dysfunction in my life, I was just trying to survive. I really just couldn't ever figure out kind of like life, and it was never really consistent over time. And so I just got tossed around a whole lot. My point in that is I never really, like now looking back, I never really developed a self. I really never developed who I am, who I want to be. And a result of that is I never developed standards for myself. My standard was always basically whatever everybody else's standards were. Like whatever their standard was, it was going to be my standard, because I was just a people pleaser. I was a follower. never developed a self, all right? Never developed a voice, never developed standards. And so fast forward to it as an adult, get married, blah, 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 16 years later, get divorced, okay? Still at 40, never really had standards, really never had a self. You know, I was basically just kind of living out my childhood and my adulthood. And so, you know, several years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I really did some self-development, okay? Did some self-development after my divorce. Really said, okay, Randy, this is your time to shine. This is your time to be who you are, what you've always wanted to be. And just started developing self. Just really took a hard look at myself. It's been a really interesting 3 years. It's been a hard 3 years. There's been a lot of tears. You guys heard me say, as things come up, they come out, and sometimes they come out in sweat. Sometimes they come out in tears, y'all. Tears, there's nothing wrong with crying. That's just that pain coming out of you, all right? But I guess my point in all this is, as I've developed more of myself, developed just kind of who I am, I definitely have developed standards. I've developed standards in what I want in life. And the standards, I guess I could relate this to, you know, like a mullet. The standards are like, you know, like business in the front, party in the back, right? Right now my hair is like party all the time. There's no business. Well, it's business. It's my business, okay? It's my business. But anyway, like I had a client tell me recently, like, Randy, I kind of enjoy you know, how you do things. You kind of mix in fun and you kind of mix in seriousness. Right? You kind of mix in fun, you kind of mix in seriousness, and that's a great way to describe what my standards are. That's a great way to describe my standards. I think there's a time to have fun, and I think there's a time to be serious. I think there's a time to love, and I think there's a time to be a badass, all right? I think there's a time where you have to have high standards for yourself. That's at least for me, right? This is who I've developed. I want to have high standards for myself, and I want to have grace at the same time. I want to have a side of grace. Okay, so the way I'm looking at this right now is I've got high standards for myself, but when I don't meet those high standards, I give myself grace, okay? I give myself grace. I just give myself that love when I feel like I don't deserve it, right? When I've failed, when I've made a mistake, when I haven't lived up to that high standard, I give myself that grace. I say it's okay, all right? And because I have those standards with the side of grace for myself, I have that for other people also, right? Both personally and professionally. Like when we're working, when we're doing our stuff here, I have high standards. I want you, you know, when you tell me I've got goals, Randy, I want to help you accomplish those goals. I want to help you accomplish those goals. And when we need to be serious, we got to be serious. Now, we can also give dabs and we can have fun at the same time. We can have fun at the same time, all right? But it's a high standard with the side of grace, all right? Personally, I want the same thing for myself, and I'm continuing to evolve. Sometimes I slip back into that people-pleasing. Sometimes I step back into kind of like, hey, my standards are whatever everybody else's standards are. No, Randy, you got to keep digging into what are your standards? What are your standards? And sometimes that's uncomfortable because you got to go into that place where you got to say, okay, I'm not there yet, but yes, I'm going to continue to have that value. I'm going to continue to value high standards with the side of grace. That's kind of my way of doing things. I want to be, I guess I want to say I want to be great. I want to be the best version of myself. That's what I'm always trying to achieve, to try to be the best version of myself. I know there's going to be times when I'm not the best version of myself, and that's when I give the grace, all right? They say, you know, you're like the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with, right? You're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And I've consciously made a big, I've put a lot of attention and effort into just the people professionally and personally that I'm associated with. Certainly, you know, I'm friendly, and certainly, you know, I'm not ever gonna like be mean or be a bully or anything like that to someone. But I've learned when you have those standards that sometimes people don't live up to your standards, and that's okay. That's okay. They don't live up to your standards. They're living up to their standards, or they're trying to, right? And just because they don't live up to your standards, it doesn't mean you're bad. You just want something else in life, and that's okay. And sometimes you just have to put boundaries around those people. You have to put boundaries so you can just live up to your standards, all right? So you love yourself. You have those standards for yourself. You push yourself. And when you don't live up to yourself, you love yourself. You give yourself that grace, all right? So it's always pushing. It's always pushing and hugging. It's always pushing and hugging. It's always pushing yourself and loving yourself. And that's an art, y'all. That's an art. I think it's a big skill. It's a big, big skill to know when to push yourself and to love yourself. It's a big, big skill to know when to, you got to push yourself into those high standards and you want great, right? And it's also a big skill to love yourself, right? When do you do that? When do you do that? That's a skill. That's an art form, y'all. That is an art form, all right? That's an art form, and it takes a lot of awareness. It takes awareness, y'all. What are your standards for yourself? What are your standards for yourself? By the way, I want to put this on record now. I don't believe everyone has to have high standards. I know our culture values high standards. I value whatever you want your standards to be. Whatever you want your standards to be, I'm okay with it. The thing that I'm not okay with is that if you have a certain standard, let's say you have a low standard for yourself, right? But you want to achieve great things, so you don't want to put a lot of effort into it. You want to achieve great things, or you have a low standard for yourself, but you want to achieve great things. Like, those two don't mix together. Those two don't mix. All right. So you're gonna have to come to some conclusion about what you want. All right. Not everyone has to have high standards, though. I know our culture really puts an emphasis on you must work, you must get the most out of your life, be your best self. Hey, I want for you whatever you want for yourself, all right? Just because you want for yourself something doesn't mean I have to want that for myself, or your mom doesn't have to want that for herself, or your friend, right? We can all have different standards. We can all have different standards, okay? All right, here's the deal, Lucille. So I see clients, teenagers a lot, especially high schoolers, and adults that have high standards. That's I would say a lot of the clients have that personality that they're, you know, they would say type A. I'm type A, right? Which kind of is AKA I have high standards for myself, but they don't have the side of grace. They don't have the side of grace that I'm talking about. And so I have to help them, you know, have that side of grace, because what happens is I see that people that have high standards is they have high standards and they keep lifting that bar, or they keep lifting those standards to a point where they're never going to be able to reach whatever standards they're setting. Okay, so the standards just get higher and higher and higher all the time. They don't have that side of grace, and so what happens is they set themselves up for failure. Okay, they set themselves up for failure, and they also set themselves out for burnout. Okay, for burnout. And here's the struggle with burnout. Like, okay, so I'm working and I'm wanting to do good things in life. I'm trying to achieve some things, some goals, and I'm really trying to hard. I don't have that side of grace. I get tired emotionally and physically, and then at some point I get so tired emotionally and physically, I'm like, I don't even want to try anymore. I don't even try anymore. So you go from really having high standards and like, I have to achieve this in this way, to you get burnt out, you get fatigued, and you're like, now I don't even care. So you shift to the total opposite, right? And what needs to bridge the gap there is that side of grace, y'all. That side of grace. We got to have that side of grace to understand, let's keep achieving, let's keep pushing, let's keep you being your best version of yourself, whatever that is, right? But when you don't achieve, when you don't meet those expectations, throw in a little grace, okay? Just have you a couple like steak and shake fries, or a couple Joe's KC fries. Those are good, I like those. Or Five Guys, oh, those are on the top. Have you a couple fries with that burger, okay? Have you a little side of grace, a little side of French fries. Have you a little bit of that, and then keep going, okay? And then keep going, just keep pushing. And then when you need to, give yourself that grace, say it's okay, and then boom, you got it. We're just gonna keep moving forward. So it's like, you know, you probably see like, okay, you know, 5 or 6 steps forward, and then a couple steps back, and then you give yourself that grace, you know, that love when you feel like you don't deserve it or you failed. You know, just give yourself that love. That love will kind of push you forward. It'll kind of push you forward, and you'll just kind of keep, you know, 5 steps forward, 1 step back, 8 steps forward, 2 steps back, and before you know it, you're miles ahead. You're miles ahead. It wasn't because of those expectations you had for yourself, even though that's what people think a lot. It's the expectations. No, it's not the expectations. It's the grace, right? It's not the high standards that get you far, far ahead. It's the grace that you give yourself. Let me say that again. It's the grace that you give yourself when you don't meet your standards. Look at that. A leaf just fell in the car. I'm going to take that as a sign that that fall is agreeing with me. I don't know why this is the sign that fall is agreeing with me, that it's not about the standards you have, it's about the grace that you give yourself. Little pretty little leaf here, little pretty little leaf. Throwing it back out in the wild. That's what you got to do with those leaves. You got to throw them back out in the wild when they fly in your car. You got to throw them back out in the wild. All right, y'all. Got to get back to clients.